practically alone, landing with 82 followers.
Having normal relations makes it easier for us to talk.
When the U.S. opened travel to Cuba, it created a new bridge for exchange. Artists like Cima Funk are touring internationally. In Havana, a community dance project lights up a neighborhood. As internet access rapidly emerges in Cuba, connectivity is changing people's everyday lives.
We can make this journey as friends.
What is the Cuban dream? I know what it is for me, but what is it for you?
I live here because I belong here. I wouldn't live in Cuba. I like living in America.
It seems you like Edmonds quite a bit even, perhaps.
I've been on this street. I can look out down the street and see my junior high school. I know where my home is.
The first time that I went to Cuba, it was really kind of my curiosity, like, what is on the other side? Also, as a storyteller, I'm aware that part of the effect of the embargo is it's a blockade of stories, too. And I started thinking about how stories can be a bridge in the face of this wall of the embargo.
You really learn about your country when you leave it and look at it from a distance. As a travel writer, on vacation with my family in Cuba, it was just a festival of fun little moments that are really what good travel is all about. And I always wanted to go to Cuba. And I hear a lot of people complaining about how Cuba's system is terrible and the people are just in poverty. And I wanted to go down there and talk to people in Cuba and get a sense of, is that true and what's it like and why is it? I could walk the streets of Havana in a rough barrio after midnight with my family and feel completely safe. You can't do that in Washington, D.C. You can't do that in Chicago. You can do it in Havana. You can travel to expose yourself to ideas that are different than what you were raised with. You can travel in a way where you are finding people who find different truths to be self-evident and God-given. You don't need to embrace all of those, but it is healthy to know that we are not the norm. It's almost subversive for an American to go someplace and find people are happy without being materially wealthy. I mean, in Cuba, a party is just 12 people and a bottle of rum. Cuba has a special spirit. There's no place like Cuba.
Muchas veces la realidad cubana no está palpable en hoteles ni en polos turísticos. A mí me encanta el barrio en una localidad que se llama Los Sitios, o sea, está en el mismo centro de La Habana. La población de ahí no tenga un sitio donde puedan estar sus niños, la madre no pueda pagar, no tienen recursos. Es un proyecto sociocultural comunitario que se llama A Compás Flamenco. Nos dedicamos principalmente a insertar a las niñas a la sociedad por mediación de la danza y escogimos el flamenco porque primero que nada es una cultura que llevamos nosotros los cubanos en la sangre. Nuestro proyecto, a pesar de trabajar con niñas, escogemos las niñas de 3 años. Para poder tener yo ese proyecto aquí en la comunidad, yo tenía que vivir en la comunidad. Una niña que me llevé en aquel momento, que era pequeña, es actualmente la profesora. La conocí, yo creo que tendría 5 años y tiene 25. Me he metido en su ámbito familiar, yo soy una más de la familia.
O sea, más que un proyecto, más que eso, es una familia, es que somos todos. Afinidad, un afecto de personas, de cariño, de roce, el trabajo con los niños. El típico género del flamenco, yo pienso que si tiene sus dificultades, se entrena a diario, lo lleva ahí constante, siempre aprendes algo nuevo, eso sí es cierto.
La niña saca mala nota en la escuela, la voy a quitar del baile. Y le digo, error. Es un niño o una niña que tiene que llevar un ritmo de música capaz de imaginarte cuántos pasos y cuántas variaciones de ritmo puede llevar un espectáculo de 1 hora.
La importancia que tiene para los niños presentarse en diferentes tipos de lugares es el resultado de lo que tú, en este caso yo como maestra, he trabajado con ellos. Y cuando se presenta en cualquier tipo de lugar, o sea, tú estás viendo el resultado de cómo ese alumno ha avanzado, cómo ha desarrollado, qué ha aprendido, qué no ha aprendido. Ahora lo voy a enseñar no solamente a mis padres, a la comunidad, o sea, a los participantes, las personas que estén ahí.
Para una persona es la vida. Todo el mundo lucha por algo, por una proyección. O sea, tú puedes ir por cualquier barrio, que tú te vas a encontrar a algún niño o haciendo sonido con una lata y un palo, y el sueño del día a día es nuestra constante.
In a society like Cuba, you have lots of people who are disruptive and are making change. You have dissidents on one side, you have entrepreneurs on another side, and lots of people in between. What about artists, musicians, and people in the theater and documentary filmmakers who are shining a light on things and really breaking through in a way that a political dissident can't?
Eso, pero manténla así, ¿no? Hey yo, what up? I'm Cima Funk. I'm a Cuban artist. I make Afro-Cuban music mixed with funk. It's a project that I started seriously the last year in 2018. At the beginning of the year, I put the band together and we start to make like shows. And the people start to enjoy the stuff because it was more like it was trova. You know, the complicated lyric, only one guitar in the stage. Me, I was singing. At some point we start to make with more funk rhythms. So the people that came to the concert, that was people that came to hear like lyrics, complicated lyrics and stuff. They at the end start to, you know, to move. So at some point I just realized that I want to take it more serious and I moved to the capital. Hay mucha música en La Habana, entonces donde quiera que ibas había gente tocando y había el movimiento de la música alternativa, estaba el movimiento del rock and roll, el movimiento del hip hop, del rap. Entonces sí, fue bastante electrificante y me alimenté mucho en esos tiempos de medios. But the thing is that the internet changed a lot of the way that we communicate the art. That's one of the things that really impact my work, you know. The access to the internet. Now we make a campaign and we are in touch with a lot of crowd of all provinces from Cuba. You know, like people from Guantanamo, you know, that is the other side of the country. And it's like a full communication with the people in the island. It is the major crowd that I have. Before the internet was more difficult, of course. You know.
Hello, hey, Uncle. Hi, Cray. How are you? Good, my friend. How are you, bro? Finally, we're here.
Me llamo Carla, soy parte del grupo de bajanda. Estamos en la oficina de bajanda, aquí es donde realmente ocurre todo. Trabajamos con los choferes, revisamos diariamente todo lo que ocurre con los viajes. Creo que los cubanos han tenido que aprender a trabajar con poco y obtener grandes resultados de eso. Hoy en día el cuentapropismo es un ejemplo de eso.
Bajanda fue la primera aplicación de taxis en Cuba disponibles para iPhone y para Android. Lanzamos 2 meses después que se lanzaran los servicios de datos móviles. Busqué formas de hacerlo sin internet, realmente no era posible, así que puse el proyecto en pausa mientras me enfocaba en otros proyectos hasta el año 2018, donde empezaron a hablar acerca de que iban a lanzar los internet de datos móviles ese año. En aquel momento no había internet, así que no había grandes ideas de negocios que tuviesen que ver con tecnología. No estaban las condiciones creadas tampoco. Es decir, muchas personas vieron la forma de poder emprender, de poder hacer un negocio nuevo que antes no era posible. Solamente existía la posibilidad de terminar tus estudios y trabajar para una empresa de gobierno, una gran empresa, y ahora tenías la posibilidad de lanzar tu propio negocio. Incluso aquí en la oficina estamos frente a un parque wifi, es decir, el parque este de fuera es un parque wifi y tenemos conexión gracias a eso. En aquel momento también vivíamos cerca de un parque wifi, entonces nos era sencillo. Es una amplia gama de cosas que no existían en Cuba, ¿sabes? Entonces, realmente los cubanos tenemos algo de esta mentalidad de solucionar cosas, arreglar, resolver. Y siempre estamos buscando la forma de traer un servicio que no existe en Cuba, cómo podemos insertarlo con las particularidades. Creo que el Internet todavía no son perceptibles, todavía no hay un gran lanzamiento. Bajanda es uno de los primeros negocios en aprovechar totalmente los datos móviles.
Mediante las redes sociales se están creando Instagramers, influencers que buscan un estilo de vida, se han creado un estilo de vida mediante Instagram, mediante las redes sociales, youtubers, y es importante porque realmente nos mantenemos conectados con el mundo exterior, con lo que está pasando, cómo podemos crecer, cómo podemos implementar esas cosas aquí.
The internet creates access to information, but also it bypasses these formalized rights. It sort of gives them to the Cuban people. You have the ability to assemble online. You have the ability to speak your mind. You have the ability to put pressure on the state through a hashtag. Anyone trying to be an activist of any kind, to speak their mind, to go out against the government, like they can be arbitrarily arrested, there can be charges trumped up against them.
It was easy to recognize the once grandeur of Havana, but it was decayed. I always felt that Cuba was probably the safest country I'd ever been to. My name is Alan Gross, and I was a contractor on a USAID-funded project to introduce broadband internet connectivity. You want to sit here? Little did I realize that my little subcontract was part of a much larger project called Democracy in Cuba. And I guess that's the first thing that got me into trouble. I can say this now as a Monday morning quarterback. Had I known then what I ultimately found out later on, I would never have done the project.
I'll have to refer you to the session.
The last night of my last trip, the fifth trip, around 10 o'clock at night, I was arrested in my hotel and spent the next 5 years in prison. They said, grab your things, you're coming with us. And then after a high-speed drive through Havana, they took me to a place called Villa Marista, which I later came to learn was a prison for political prisoners. You hear the clink of the door, and that's when I knew I was probably going to be there for a while. It was a nightmare. That's when the nightmare started. The better part of the year was a year of sensory deprivation. No radio, no books and magazines. I wasn't even allowed to have pencil and paper. We very rarely went outside. You get settled into a routine of nothing until the interrogators came. And that was something I ultimately looked forward to because it would break the monotony. I wasn't charged with a crime for 14 months. My captors, I guess, realized I could be an asset for them.
I had been supporting the secret negotiations led by Ben Rhodes and Ricardo Zuniga. And then once we made the decision that we were ready to go and announce this to the world, bring Alan Gross and our intelligence asset home.
Sort of whispers that there may be some back-channeling conversations. But one of the big issues was the issue of prisoners. So you had Alan Gross, who was the American prisoner, who wasn't being released. And then you had 4 Cubans who had been indicted and prosecuted. What happens if we release these 4 and they don't release Alan Gross? Or how do we know that this is really going to open up the conditions for real negotiation?
The next day, December 17th, got up early. They transferred me to an airfield. Air Force One alternative came in with my wife, Judy, Scott Gilbert, Senator Leahy, Senator Flake, and then Representative Chris Van Hollen. We got on the plane and we left. It represented a lot more than my freedom. We got in the air. They had a CNN on the TV screen on the plane. When we passed into US airspace, fist pumps, and it was a very happy moment. They brought us lunch, so I'm kind of nibbling at it, gnawing at it, and a flight attendant came into the office and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Gross, there's a call for you." I said, who's calling me here? And he said, "It's the president." And I looked at the sandwich, and I looked at the flight attendant, and I looked at the sandwich, and I looked at the flight attendant. I said, "Oh, all right," and I put the sandwich down, and I sat on the sofa with the phone, and I said, "Hello, this is Alan Gross." And I hear a voice says, "Hello, Alan, this is Barack Obama." I said, "Oh, Mr. President, how are you?" And he says, "I'm fine, Alan, how are you?" And I said, "Well, I was just about to eat a corned beef sandwich." And he says, "I thought I heard a little mustard on your lip." And I could tell that initially he was a little concerned that I might be angry with him for taking so long to get me out of there, but I wasn't at all. I was a catalyst in the reestablishment of relations, formal relations with Cuba. I was freed because of positive and constructive engagement.
Diplomacy is the work of small steps. These small steps have added up to new hope for the future in Cuba. And after years in prison, we are overjoyed that Alan Gross is back where he belongs. Welcome home, Alan. We're glad you're here.
How can we best explain this, not just to other Cuban Americans who may not be supportive of what we're doing, but to the average American? Why should people care about Cuba? How would we announce this to the world? How would we explain to the average American why this mattered? Why is it important, even if you live in Iowa or Nebraska or Oregon or Boston? If you're a farmer in the heartland, you care about the economy and you care about the ability to do trade deals that maybe were never a possibility before because of the embargo and the other rules that prohibited you from doing that. Oftentimes we find that governments will disagree, but the people don't. We wanted to ease travel, to make it easier for Americans to visit Cuba, to see for themselves how this wasn't about only the Castro government, but about creating a better life for the Cuban people, empowering them to make a better life for themselves.
Castro was elevated, not lowered, by America's insistence on making life difficult for Cuba. But Cuba continues to be an enemy because we make it an enemy. It wants to be free to live life the way Cubans want to live life. That predates communism. That predates Castro. It's a little flower. Why can't we let that flower grow and shape with whatever the economic and environmental weather requires and prosper?
Cuba sufrió un cambio cuando se hizo popular todas las reformas del sector privado. Se incorporaron muchísimas licencias. Una parte de la población que transitó del sector estatal, trabajar para empresas del gobierno, grandes empresas, a desarrollar sus propios negocios, a trabajar para personas que estaban desarrollando sus propios negocios.
Que antes la apertura del Internet, marketing no era realmente una opción en Cuba, no existía, no había espacio para ello. Y la apertura del Internet pues, nos ha dado una posibilidad de llegar a las personas, realmente soluciona hoy muchos problemas. Solo estamos trabajando en efectivo, realmente es la única forma de pago que hoy somos capaces de ofrecer. Se nos hace complicado, pero es a lo que estamos adaptados. Yo tengo 20 años, crecí así y realmente para mí hoy en día eso es parte de mi normalidad. Yo estuve por 2 años fuera de Cuba, estaba viviendo en los Estados Unidos, sobre todo en una ciudad como Nueva York. El transporte público funciona muy bien. Pedir un Uber, moverme en él, y cuando regresé a Cuba me di cuenta de la falta que eso hacía aquí. Lo difícil que es para alguien moverse en la ciudad. Mi sueño para Cuba sería que crezca, que haya nuevas oportunidades, que el internet sea aún más accesible para todos, que podamos acceder a otros países más fácilmente.
Start to travel and I go play in some places. Bueno, ahora mismo estamos aquí en New York City, ya tú sabes, la Gran Manzana. Ahí tocamos en Central Park y fue súper especial. Súper especial, es como algo que si me lo hubieran dicho unos años atrás hubiera sido un poco difícil de creerlo, porque Central Park es un lugar inmenso, súper lindo y tiene mucha historia, que para mí representa mucho para toda la cosa de la cultura musical, ¿entiendes? Que se ha esparcido por el mundo de toda la gente que pasaron por aquí y la echaron y dejaron cosas. The internet changed a lot of the way that we communicate the art. These people are like super involved, and these people follow, and these people watch the videos, and these people write and communicate. When you come, well, at what time you have this concert? Well, you have to go. Lo que pasa con eso es que el cubano en todas partes. El cubano que está fuera de Cuba siempre está conectado con lo que hay en Cuba, con lo que está pasando, qué es lo que está pasando con la música, qué es lo que está pasando con los chismes, con el invento, con el brete. Es parte del hecho de crear el interés de la gente hacia nosotros, hacia los artistas cubanos y hacia el arte cubano en general ahora mismo, ¿entiendes? Y que todo el mundo goce esa sensación y que todo el mundo sepa que al final somos gente igual, ¿me entiendes? Vela, mi hermano. Lo que aquí estoy al revés hacer. Estoy virado acá abajo. Ahí. Simplemente para coger ventaja ahí. Que siempre estoy, yo siempre estoy aquí igual, siempre estoy aquí, aunque movamos, hagamos un concierto por aquí, un concierto por allá, siempre, ¿entiendes? El centro es esto aquí, y aquí es donde nos volvemos locos y producimos a millón y donde nos volvemos locos y gozamos. El groove tiene personalidad propia, él dice lo que hay y si tú te dejas llevar entonces lo gozas y aunque no lo entiendas a veces lo vives y lo vives rico.
When you travel to Cuba and you talk to people, it's a first step in recognizing that there's something special about this island. For me, the greatest souvenir is to come home with a broader perspective.
So I do want to show you this short VR piece on your side.
Okay.
Have you ever done VR before?
No.
I started this project as a student and in many ways still am. With each interview we've asked, what is your dream for Cuba? And what I love about that question is there's not just one answer.
¿Cuál es el sueño cubano? Yo creo que eso hay que estudiarlo con profundidad porque hay diversos sueños.
My dream for Cuba is, there are a lot of really profound things I could say, but to me what encapsulated is hearing any American on the street be able to say, we have a long weekend, should we just go to Cuba this weekend?
My dream would be that Cuba lives up to its potential, which I think is huge.
A pesar de las carencias y de muchos problemas que tenemos, la gente tiene una cultura de interesarse por el otro. Entonces, eso no me gustaría perderlo.
Sueño una Cuba que las comunidades busquen dentro de su interior cuáles son las potencialidades que tiene y la ponga en función de nuestra gran comunidad que es Cuba.
Having seen the beauty of the country and the history of the country, it's going to be 60 years in 2020. It's about time that this thing begins to change.
This is a very literate, talented people with a 500-year history. Left unrestricted, they will become giants. Certainly, they'll become stars in the Caribbean.
There's not just one answer. And the only way we can bring that multiplicity into focus is by dreaming together. What is your dream for Cuba?
Prefiero respirar, quiero cantar, voy a olvidar a todo el que me hace llorar.